because I did have friends that when they left, they became full-blown heroin addicts. I had a friend that killed himself because they don't prepare you for life.
Oh, okay. So
They prepare you for essentially either death or nothing. Well, so I was raised, born into a cult
okay.
as a kid, and my parents split when I was 5 years old. And I went back and forth between my father had stayed in the cult, and my mom had gotten out. So I went back and forth, and between the two, so I was kind of getting earfuls of everything. And life was just very restrictive. For me, it's, my dad, when I decided to leave when I was around 15, he's like, I don't want anything to do with you.
So this is like a very extreme, maybe version.
And also, it's essentially, when you boil it down, it's an apocalyptic cult, because every day was, we don't prepare. The only thing we prepare for is Armageddon. It's like you could wake up tomorrow and there's going to be earthquakes everywhere, and we just don't know. So it's the constant fear. And there's nothing wrong with being religious or having faith. I don't think, but when your family separates, when you separate yourself from your family members, if they don't believe, then to me you're in cult territory.
Right.
And I think people slowly are starting to realize that, because I kind of look at the numbers, because that's ultimately what it is. It's a numbers game, and you have this faceless organization that kind of controls everything. They tell you what to do. Supposedly it's coming from a higher, but it's not. And then if you just look at the history of it, started by a criminal, I mean, not a good thing. And a lot of the people are very nice, but I don't think they realize what it does to a kid. Because I did have friends that when they left, they became full-blown heroin addicts. I had a friend that killed himself because they don't prepare you for life.
Oh, okay. So
They prepare you for essentially either death or nothing, which is kind of,
So like earlier, like when you said that everything's about like Armageddon.
Yeah.
So are they doing like doomsday prepper, kind of like
So
let's get ready for it, or is it just kind of like?
It is that, but without the prepper. It's more fear.
Okay.
It's just the fear of, if you do this, you would be displeasing to God. So you don't want to do anything that's going to stray you from the path. That could basically don't think for you don't think for yourself.
Right.
You don't partake in everything was worldly. So you don't associate with people outside the witnesses. And even within your own family, you don't associate with your family members that aren't witnesses. So my dad cut me off when I was 15, and he was a good man, wasn't abusive. He was very accepting of people, but to see him he was a musician. He was a great drummer, and he left all of that to join this. And it's like watching somebody just become something that they're not. And as I grew up, like I could see that.
How old were you when you first started to kind of see past like the veil? Like what is this?
So I think probably, well, the first thing that there was a brother in our congregation that had been, they call it disfellowshipped. He was just a very kind person, you know, a lot of them are. But, you know, he was effeminate a little bit. And they publicly, I was probably 11, and they gave a talk, this elder or whatever was giving a talk, and they publicly kind of outed him because he hadn't been around for a while. And I'm like, where did, you know? And my dad, I asked him, I'm like, why, you know, what's wrong? I mean, he was a gay man. And to me, it just didn't make sense because he was so kind. But my dad, he shows me the Bible verse. It's like, you know, this, that, and the other thing. And to me, that didn't make sense. And he freaked out. He's like, oh, are you? And I'm like, no, like I've never felt that way.
You just didn't think it was fair what was done.
I just didn't think it was fair because
Right.
he was nice, and there were other people that were in the congregation that were. I could sense that they were not good people.
Right.
And when I say that they're nice people, like there are bad people and everything. But some people you just know, you get a sense. And I had another incident.
You were saying that you had another friend.
Yeah, I just had an experience in school where a kid had hit on me, and I didn't have this like violent reaction. It was immediate like empathy. I'm like, I'm so, you know, I just don't feel. And I told my dad about it, and he got so upset.
It was a guy.
It was a guy.
Okay. Yeah.
And you know, he wanted me to like go tell the principal and do it, and I'm like, this is kind of. And again, it just brought up the, you know, I hope I don't have a gay son, you know, which is just ridiculous. And I'm like, no, I've never felt that way. But my suspicions about some of the people that were in the congregation that had disfellowshipped this man, I later learned that they were doing horrific things to their daughter. And I brought this up to my dad before he passed, which probably wasn't the best time to do it. But he's like, well, I don't know how you heard about that. And I'm like, because she told me. And my dad, towards the end of his life, like because they go door to door to preach to people, and he had come across a gay gentleman that he actually ended up sort of just having just a friendly, like he would come over and they'd talk about the Bible. And eventually my dad started talking to me again. He had a major heart attack when I was 18. And about the age of like 21, 22, he would call me and he'd talk to me a little bit. And then slowly over the years, you know, we kind of reconnected, but there was so much missed time that, you know, and especially with where I was going, like he was still, you know, he would have drumsticks laying around the house and I'd pick them up and I'd hit stuff, you know, and he would just take it away and be like, no, like, I don't want my son to do that. Like I brought a guitar home and he was like, no, you can't, don't bring that into the house. But he loved music. Like he took me to see Elton John. Like, so you have all these mixed messages with kids. So when I say like, it's like watching somebody become something that they're just not, that's essentially what it was. And you see that throughout the congregation. So a lot of those things, just the panic and the not preparing. I was married, and when I moved to California, I had no intention of it, but her and I helped her move out there, and then we ended up getting engaged on the way, and we moved together. We got married, but then about 4 years into, I could not be the husband that she needed me to be, and I had always thought I was just kind of not lazy, but just the motivation wasn't there. So it was me trying to like figure out. It's like all those traumas from being a kid they presented themselves at the worst possible time, which is kind of when all this stuff really started. And I looked back, and things just started to make sense. Like the trail was like, okay, I see
like
where
you're carrying all this baggage you didn't know until you get into this relationship, and then all of a sudden she's looking at you
like, why aren't you out like looking for jobs? And I'm like, I work. Like I was working in a kitchen. She was working in a film studio, and I was making more money than she was. I think it was just, and I still like just aside, like I still love her. Like we're still really good friends and everything, which I'm very proud of. But, and then I was thinking, I'm like, yeah, like you tell a kid not to prepare, like not to do things, not to prepare. They don't get skills. You don't really date when you're a witness until you're ready to get married, which just makes no sense. And if you tell a kid not to prepare for life, but only to prepare for
death or the end.
The end, if you're just, watch the skies, this, that, and the other thing. Good luck planning anything later in life. Unless you kind of realize earlier that that's where it's coming from.
Right.
This is why I had such an issue. So urgency wasn't there. And it just became very like, this needs to happen by this date, at this, and I would just be like, I can't, my brain doesn't work that way.
Right, yeah.
So, and she understands that now, because I didn't even understand it at the time. But I think that a lot of it, that's where it kind of came from.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just to go back a little bit, because you said that when that kid had hit on you in school, the guy, and he said, go tell the principal. Like, were you like in a public school, or were you like
I was in
kind
public. Yeah, I lived, my mom lived in Indiana. My dad had moved to Cuyahoga Falls.
Okay.
Or Stowe, I'm sorry, Stowe. And it was there.
Oh, okay.
This was like 93,
Okay.
92, 93. And that was kind of that was where it really just kind of stopped making sense to me.
Right.
Plus, my dad, again, just being who he was, like when Philadelphia came out on, and I don't know why it was that specifically, like just the gay relationships and stuff. I think I just always been kind of empathetic to that, and especially being in rural Ohio, and just during that time period, I was just, after when the movie was over, I was just crying, and I looked at my dad, and he was too. So, again,
like the mixed messages.
Yeah, right. and just it does far more harm than good. It's just I guess I just didn't have that fear that he wanted me to have, and he kind of saw that. Like I was, I also listened to heavy metal. He found Playboy magazines, which all and it broke his heart because he knew I was kind of slowly
kind of moving away,
and I had just gotten. So I had just gotten baptized when I was 13. And I think it was a thing where, did I do it because I truly believed it, or did I do it because I loved my dad? I didn't want to disappoint him, because you have to go through a whole thing. And again, I don't know how it is now. I know they've changed, but they've changed some things. But yeah, it's. I think I did that for
him.
For him, right. Yeah. When I really think about it.
What do you think drew him into this? Because he was a musician, he loved music, all this, and all of a sudden he just gives all that up and switches to this. So
I think what it was the classic. He had lived in a place called San Leandro, California, and which is oddly enough where I had moved, near there. Oakland is near San Leandro in California. I think we were about the same age, and he had went down to a beach in Half Moon Bay, and he was trying to figure out, what happens after you die, what is all this, and he just prayed to he didn't know what, and again, textbook, the next day, hi, we're Jehovah's Witnesses. Do you know what happens when you die? And he was immediately hooked.
Oh, okay.
He invited him in, talked to him, and that set him and my mom down that path.
Okay.
And I think they had only had I have 2 sisters and a brother, but I think they had just had my oldest sister at that point. And yeah, that was it. They packed up. They moved to Chicago, where all my dad's family was and my mom's family was. And that was it. They had my next sister, and then they had me. I don't think I was planned. But yeah, it was just, that's usually how that happens.
Right. So he was maybe going through some kind of
He was
existential crisis,
exactly.
some kind of, figuring life out. Then they just kind of come with the answers.
Yeah, he was at an impasse, and
Yeah.
he didn't know.
Yeah.
I don't think none of us do.
Yeah.
But it's just that that pivotal moment,
Right.
and it got his hooks in him.
Yeah.
And it doesn't turn him into a bad person, but you lose a lot.
Right.
They ask you to sacrifice. It's like there's that song, I don't remember who sings it, but talking about living for today. And he's like, well, we don't live for today. We live for tomorrow. Like, he would always tell me that anytime it came on, because he'd listen to the classic 50s radio. He would drive me to my mom's. He would get me like every other weekend. And he'd listen, the Beatles and all these great bands. And it was just, again, mixed messaging.
Yeah.
So it was just all these things. And I think it just warped my brain until eventually the hormones started kicking in, and I knew my mom would let me do certain things. She'd let me take guitar lessons. I could watch movies that I couldn't watch with my dad. But he tried. It was still like he bought me Nintendo when it came out, and like we'd play Legend of Zelda till like 3 a.m, like things that other kids in our congregation would not be able to do. He let me do, but then there was just this fear of the world ending.
Right.
And my dad would feel guilty about doing certain things, and it was like.
And he held on to that all the way to the end, right?
Yeah,
For the
he
most part,
clung
yeah.
to it. Yeah, he ended up getting remarried. He went to Australia to do preaching work, and met a very nice lady, got remarried, and they were together until the end. But yeah, he clung to it.
Right. It sounds like, I don't know his entire story and his motivations. Only he would know that. But it sounds like it could appeal to some people because it sort of takes some pressure of life off of you. So I think especially with guys, that there's more of expectation for you to be successful, have money, do this. But if you're in a place where it's like, oh, well, none of that matters. The only thing matters is the end, Armageddon, so forth and so on. So whether you're quote unquote successful in real life doesn't really mean anything. That almost gets devalued.
Right.
And then you have a lot less pressure on you, right?
100%.
So if I'm not doing anything, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true.
A corporation or something, like, who cares,
Right. It's a load lifted, and again, I have Catholics in my family. I have all different kinds, and for some people, they can't. They feel they wouldn't be able to operate without it.
Right.
It gets them through. Whereas as I kind of, when it comes to cult stuff like that, besides just they're looking for something and then they get snared. Yeah, I think it's partially that. And then when my mom and my dad got divorced, I mean, that broke him. The witnesses in the congregation that we were in didn't disfellowship him, but it was just such a complicated situation where he had to step back because he was trying to get to the elder, level. And that he seemed to care more about that than, obviously what had happened with my mom and him was just devastating for him. But I think that also played a part where, community is another thing that I completely understand when people, because I'm terrible with people, but I was raised without people skills, at least out, everybody, I could only talk to people who were Jehovah's Witnesses. So I'd go to school and, my sense of community, and I moved around a lot too. My dad moved, he was in Illinois and then he moved to Ohio, and my mom was in Illinois and then moved to Indiana. I was all over the place. Right. So there was no real sense of community. But then when I lived with my dad from, I think, 11 to 15, it was, I could see he felt like he had a community, like he had something there. And he worked, he had a job, but I was talking about going to school, already thinking about college, and he's like, we don't go to college, we don't do any of that. So it's like, okay, he's like, you just learn how to use a computer, and he was ahead of the curve. He was the first person on our block, I think, that had a computer. And it was just all that mixed messaging. It doesn't set you up for anything. And I had a girl that had asked me out, and I was extremely shy. This was, I had a hard time, but I was drawn to these few people in the school, and I told my dad about it, and he was like, oh, invite him to the meeting. It's like, God damn, okay. Right. But this girl had asked me out, and I was like, yeah, and I was all excited, and I got home, and I called my dad, and I told him, and he was like, wait a minute. He's like, girl asked you out? And I was like, yeah. Well, what'd you say? I said, yeah. And he's like, tell her you can't. He's like, we don't date until we're ready for marriage. And I was, I think, 13 or 14. And, that was another one of those moments where I was like, maybe this isn't...
for me.
Yeah, because it just, for some people it does. I still, not still, but I know people that are still in it that I grew up with, and that they're still in it. But again, they've changed so much, and I do have, my older sister she's still very much involved with the witnesses. And, we talk. I love her regardless. But you kind of see the unwavering support and just the zero issue with not asking questions about anything, or even shutting down conversations. What I referred to it as a cult. And she got real angry. It's like, oh. I'm like, well, Dad cut me off because I wasn't doing things that, I was just trying to be a kid. I didn't know. And he's, well, Dad was doing his best. And I'm like, I know he was. I get that, but you can't do that to a kid.
Right.
You can't say, I don't want anything to do with you if you don't believe in, So it was very difficult. And that kind of, when all that stuff came up, and then there were other things too. I had big jealousy problems in my like early 20s, which was essentially for me like my early teens. I feel like I'm like a decade
behind.
a decade and a half behind. So I'm 46 right now, and you know, and I was doing very well in California. Like I felt like I had finally, just after I had gotten divorced, unfortunately, all the pressure that I felt I had found a good job, and then I had money where I didn't even have to look at my bank account, and at that point I had established a pretty decent relationship with my dad, and he even came out to see my ex-wife and I, and there was a certain pride that he had, and I think the real kicker for me was my mom was very supportive when I moved in with her, and she bought me a drum set, and I moved to Milwaukee, and I was playing music, and I was finally like kind of doing something that I really felt that I could do, but I had developed all these bad habits because there was no one there when I was a kid to kind of show you to not have those bad habits, And my buddies recorded it, and I had sent it to my dad, and he saw it, and he's like, "Oh, you have some talent," and it just like at that point I was like, man, like where were you? Like all this time, all these things, it could have been. And the odd thing was he had just recently had bought another drum set for himself, so he was still playing. Like it was still, he played with Bob Lamb, who was in Chicago. He's still in Chicago, and like they became a huge group. And he was playing with them when they had a band in California called the Wanderers, and that's what he was doing when he moved to Chicago. And he had kept in contact with him. So they wrote letters back and forth. And he took me to see Chicago when they came to Blossom in like '93. And I could see it in his face. Like there was still, because you just don't get rid of that.
Yeah.
It's like tattooed inside you, And it was just, there were a few moments where it was extremely difficult. And then when he saw that I was questioning everything, it was like, it was pretty much downhill after that.
So if there's someone that's like in your position, that they're raised in some cult or cult-like environment and they're trying to exit it, what would be like your advice? Like how do you think they should go about it? Or at least maybe even just prepare themselves mentally for leaving that?
Yeah, it's very hard. I feel that a lot of things are easier said than done, and I try and think, what would I say if I met my childhood self? I mean, it would be easy to just get out, leave, go, But you're essentially at that point falling without a net. I was at least fortunate enough to have a mom that didn't really go there anymore. She was kind of disenfranchised with the whole thing because of the way they treated her, because of there was infidelity essentially. And
on her part.
On her part.
Okay.
And my middle sister, she had stayed with my mom. She went with my mom, so that also broke my dad's heart. And it's if you don't have a net, if you don't have something or some kind of community,
Like
which again,
support system, right? Like outside of that environment.
If you're 14, 15, I go on Reddit and there's an XJW subreddit, and what I see a lot of times too is a lot of it's just LGBTQ people, kids that don't know, like they feel lost. Some of them are just suicidal because they know they're not accepted where they are. So I always see that, I see those, and as much as my ADHD allows me, I'll write. It's like, just, hang in there. Sometimes they're, 15, 6, they're my age, And it's like, just hang in there.
Right.
Like, I know it's tough, and you obviously don't know their whole circumstances, but try and find a good support group that's not that, because they're not going to support you,
Right.
And in more conservative areas, and like around here, and one of the good things that I love about where I was at, especially in the Bay Area in California, they're very open. I mean, there are support groups for everybody. People are very accepting, even if they don't understand it or they don't agree. Like, they're still, like, they're very accepting. And you just you find your people. Right. You find your people. But I think the most important thing is you have to be comfortable with yourself, despite what anyone else is telling you. And that goes for anybody, regardless of what they are. You just have to be comfortable with yourself and know that if you can't love yourself, you have to kind of love yourself, be able to do that, or at least find that love within yourself, because it'll show, and then you just end up trying to please other people, which there is something to be said about that. But I had to kind of really get to know myself, and I'm still like, I'll probably be doing it till I'm dead, like just weeding out all these things, and just walking through the world, with consciousness, and be accepting, even people that aren't accepting of you, just as tough as it is, because I think that's when you realize, and not like in an egotistical way, but just love yourself, like it'll make things a little bit easier. When everything else around you is difficult. If you have that and you walk through the world with your purpose, knowing what that is, sure-footedness, confidence, like it's tough. Again, it's easier said than done. I've got horrible self-esteem. Like, I've gone to therapy for that too, where it's like I feel a deep hatred for myself. Like, I know I can do things, but it's like a dichotomy in my own brain. Like, I know I can do things, but I sometimes just hate myself so much. Because I know I can do these things, and I have such an allergy to narcissism and all that kind of stuff. Where it's like, and I don't think that it was born from how I was raised, but it comes from somewhere. I don't know. But again, like, that's just, you work on yourself, and don't be afraid to talk about stuff too. I mean, therapy is great. It can be great.
Do you still go to therapy?
I haven't recently since I moved here, but I do have benefits with my job, and it's something I'm when I find the time.
You do it, yeah. Have you tried any of the online options, like where you talk to therapists?
I've did some research on that, and like, I'll listen to podcasts, and it's like sometimes they have advertisements for things, and I'll do some research on it. Sometimes it's like, I don't do that, because you just don't know, again, the internet. So I know there are some things like that. And I mean, meditation, I was trying that when I was in California, and that's more the ability to kind of calm my mind. And just, that's kind of difficult for me. So.
It sounds like, for getting out, self-love,
Self-love.
appreciate yourself, build an outside community, support system outside of that environment, and then it seems like it's probably best to try to get out as soon as possible.
As soon as possible. I mean, if you're under, if you're 15, 16, and short of like emancipating yourself, you know, that's going to be tough. I mean, because you know, it's an abusive. To me, it's very much a form of abuse.
Yeah.
You know, you might not have physical scars, but these things will present themselves at the most inopportune times in your life,
Right.
if you don't recognize it.
Yeah.
Some people are completely happy within that. Like I said, I still know people that are in it. And okay, like they're not bad people, but I guess as long as you're not hurting anyone,
Right.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
do what you want. But yeah, just don't be afraid.
Yeah.
You know, fear will kill you in every aspect of life. And again, easier said than done.
Right.
But just hang in there. Know that there are people out there that care. They might be hard to find in a lot of areas, but put your tentacles out there. Put your feelers out there. You'll find something. You'll find people.
Okay, we can leave it there. All right, Pete. Well, I appreciate your time and
Thank you.
thanks for sharing your story.